Thanks for being on the show. I'm sorry. I'm
Pleasure.
sorry. Because of scheduling, we couldn't get more of your team on, but we appreciate you showing up this week. Um,
No problem.
for folks who don't know, every show is somebody's first show, and if this is your first show, I'm sorry. Uh, who is Mike Snowden?
I'm the VFX director here at CIG, so I
No,
basically.
pues ahí tenéis al director de efectos especiales de, de Cloud Imperium Games, Mike Snowden.
Lecter, as I can see
I
behind
am,
you.
yes, I am indeed. I'm not allowed any of this at home, so it has to come with me to work.
You are in very much the same boat I am, where
Dice que es un coleccionista de juegos antiguos y tal, y que no dice que no tiene permitido tener eso en casa, así que lo trae al trabajo.
I'm in the UK, I instantly feel at home. I'm like, yes, the geek nesting instinct. I understand it well. At least yours is all themed. At least yours is all like a consistent theme. Mine is all over the place.
Yeah, I like to think that the real reason we're moving offices to a bigger place is so I can fit more stuff. I think that's the real reason.
I don't know. It's the new office is going to be pretty swank.
Mm.
It might affect the feng shui. We'll have to see. Either way, if you can't for any reason, you can come bring it to my studio space that we're shooting just across the street. All right. What are we doing today? We're talking VFX. So if you're watching live on twitch.tv right now, you can submit your questions with the word question in capital letters, surrounded by brackets. Maybe I'll pick it, maybe I won't. Make sure it's VFX related because we're talking VFX today. If your question is where Banu Merchantman or why salvage or whatnot, this isn't going to be the show. This is Mike Snowden, VFX, visual effects director. We also put up a thread earlier in the week. Thank you, Christian, from the community team for doing that and collecting questions. Let's jump into those questions while the ones that come in live come. The EMP effect has aged gracefully. Oh, that's nice. But it's starting to show its age next to the Mantis QED or the new engine effects. Any aspirations for a polish pass?
Polish pass, yes, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, thank you for saying they've aged gracefully. They are quite old. I would agree that they are definitely uh, a prime candidate for an improvement, and especially because we have a lot of better options now with the tool set that we've got. So we've kind of massively expanded our GPU particle system since we did the EMP effect and lots of effects actually as well. So yeah, absolutely, it is on the list to be updated. Yeah.
What's it going to look like?
Ooh. Well, we'd have to go through the pipeline, wouldn't we, Jared? So we'd have to go through the VFX concepting process, work out what we can and can't do, work out if there's any kind of things that the designers need from it that the current version doesn't offer. And yeah, that's how we kind of define the look, really, just taking all that into consideration and concepting.
Gotcha. So it's a back to one kind of thing with it.
Oh
You're
yeah,
creating a
yeah,
new effect.
yeah.
It's not
We
just
want we
taking what's
want
there and remastering it. Or
no, 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 starting again, really. I mean, to be honest, we didn't even have VFX concept back then when we did the AMP effect, so we would definitely go through that pipeline now. Yeah.
okay. Uh, what's the news on a new quantum travel effect rework that was mentioned back in 2020? We have been talking about our desire to update quantum travel for a while now.
Yeah, so I mean, our stance, well, our position on that is that it's not a purely VFX overhaul or rework. It's actually the whole thing itself. So the whole feature, and including all the teams that entails. So the game code, I guess the ship designers. So it's kind of like we know what we want to do. We've got some ideas about how we want to improve the visuals. Again, similar or the same answer to the EMP question. We've got a lot more cool tools now that we can use to make those effects a lot better. So yeah, once once that's in the schedule, once everyone's kind of aligned on that in the company, then that's when we'll jump ahead. Again, we'll concept that.
Bueno, está comentando una cosa interesante, es que dice que tiene mejores herramientas para poder hacer los efectos del MP y de lo que es el Quantum Number y tal, que para que pinte mejor, que en el momento que se pueda eso, o sea, que la gente se ponga con ello, pues seguramente sacarán algo más decente de lo que hay ahora.
The lightning bolt
math.
would. Well, I can't. That's why I have VFX programmers. I just look at pictures. Definitely the lightning would on its own be more expensive than dust particles, but it kind of depends on what cost we're looking at. So dust particles might actually, I guess if we're talking about like dust motes, let's just say dust motes for argument's sake. The dust motes might be more expensive if we, for example, had a dust mote that it's essentially a sprite anyway, so it's a sprite-based particle that's right up to the screen. That might actually incur more of an overdraw cost than the lightning bolt would. But really, the lightning bolt's always going to have a lot more cost associated with it. There's going to be CPU costs because we actually need to know the positioning of the lightning bolt for gameplay reasons to be able to damage or to interact with players and vehicles and things like that. So yeah, that would definitely be the most expensive overall. What was the other part of the question? I've
I
forgotten
don't
already.
remember. Oh, are the effects built differently?
Yes, they are built very differently. They're actually, we've got like lightning effects are a kind of a sort of a subset of the particle system. So without kind of sharing my screen and showing the fundamental differences, it's probably a little bit difficult for me to describe it. But yeah, dust modes would be built in a much more simplistic way to the lightning regions, we call them actually. So yeah, very different.
Jude Lux says, "Are we getting moister eyeballs yet? That's my main concern." Listen, Jude. No. This one's for me. This one's for me, Mike. Listen, hold on. Where's my punching? There you go. Look at me. Look at me, Jude. We showcase everybody here at Star Citizen. That's my purpose. That's my passion. Remember when I did an hour with producers on how they made schedules? Remember when I brought the whole IT team in here? Because we showcase everybody. And that week, we showcased the people who made moist eyeballs because they're essential and they're valuable and their contribution matters.
Le están preguntando, está descolando ahí, en verdad es que tiene razón el hombre, porque hace una semana hablaron sobre, le han preguntado, ¿vamos a tener ojos más húmedos en el verso? Y dijeron, hace una semana hicimos un inside, prácticamente, o sea, un inside, un Star Citizen Live solo de ojos, ¿no? No, era un inside, creo que era un inside. Así que sí que era lo más importante del verso y que van a estar de cachondeo, ¿no?
Someday, hold on. Someday, I'm going to do a show with the HR people. Like, that's my threat. That's my threat to marketing. Like, someday I'm going to do a show with HR. We're going to talk about how to build cover letters and how to get hired in the video game industry and everything. Like, I'm going to do everybody. Before my time here is done, we're showcasing everybody because that's my mission.
Quite right, too. We all play the role, don't we?
Oh, I'm snarky today. Mike, can you show us any ship tractor beam work in progress?
Can I?
If you want to.
LOL. Dice, ¿puedo enseñaros algún trabajo en progreso de un rayo tractor? Y dice, está diciendo, ¿seguro que lo puedo enseñar? Dice que sí, que lo puedo enseñar. Los va a enseñar, a ver.
Do you know, I could maybe show the concept. Basically the ship tractor beam is the tractor beam itself. Even the FPS one, we're going to be improving because I'm going to give full disclosure. I'm not really a fan of the tractor beam as it looks.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm allowed to say that. I hope I am because I just have.
Be real, dude.
Yeah. I'm not a huge fan of it. We went through kind of a few iterations with it, and yeah, just to be completely honest, it just didn't quite end up. It kind of serves a purpose, and it's a really fun item. It's a fun actual game mechanic, but we know we can do better with the visuals. Basically, we've got some ideas on how we want to.
Vale, dice que como que no tiene nada ahí que dice cuando por escribir y tal, dice que ahora mismo que están muy contentos con el resultado, que dice que es una mecánica divertida, pero que no están contentos con el resultado visual que tienen ahora mismo.
Great guy for like kind of adding logic to ideas. So it's never purely visual. We're always trying to think of how and why it would work, and obviously within the parameters of making it fun and being in a sci-fi universe. But yeah, we looked at things like sonic waves and things like that for the tractor beam, and we've got a new GPU particle refraction option now, which we didn't have before. That's relatively new in our toolkit. So I'd been playing around with using kind of a fully refractive beam effect, as it were.
Dice que ha estado pensando en ondas sonoras y demás. Así rollo, pues ya sabéis, lo mítico de aritos y movidas así. También ha estado trabajando con rayos refractarios o refractantes que tienen ahora una herramienta y tal, pero que todavía no están en el asunto, ¿no? O sea, no están contentos con el resultado.
In 2 weeks, I'll see if I can't fit it in there.
Absolutely, yeah.
So let's see.
And Jared, sorry to interrupt you. When you first said it, I was thinking salvage. When you said the question, I was thinking you'd said salvage.
Next, we'll show that stuff next quarter.
Okay.
Do you plan to physicalize bomb shockwaves?
Well, we do plan to, because we have done. So the size 10 bomb that we released two patches ago, that is physicalized, yeah. So I don't know. I mean, there's so many cool backer videos when we released that thing.
I messed that up. I didn't read the rest of the question.
Okay.
It was on another line. Do you plan to physicalize bomb shockwaves for rivers in water?
Yes. Yeah. We actually do.
My bad.
I can't really kind of give hard details on
¿Tenéis pensado fiscalizar lo que es las ondas del impacto de las bombas en ríos y en el agua? Y dice que sí, que tienen pensado hacerlo.
So that is definitely on the to-do list, yeah.
Okay. As a follow-up from the live chat, Lethal Nimrod, sometimes the bombs on the A2 don't have explosion effects, which makes mobbing very sad and unrewarding. That's just a bug?
That's definitely, yeah, that's just a bug of it. I mean, if they're not triggering, then we need to get on that and see what's going on there. Okay. So yeah,
I'll talk to Will Weissbaum. I'll get him on it.
I'm gonna write a post-it note. Make it out of it.
Let's see. Are there plans for ship trailing, like in Quantum, when inside a gas cloud?
Yes, there are. So ship trailing like in Quantum. So all of the kind of effect that we've got where it looks like the ship is kind of displacing matter and causing a trail. Yeah, absolutely. That was one of the things that I think when we first we've talked about signed distance fields probably a million times, and we use it a lot, or we plan to use it a lot more. And that's the kind of thing that the signed distance fields would allow us to do. So we have, when we're in gas clouds, when we're in planetary clouds as well, we have like template effects that are spawned from the cloud data. So I know that we said don't talk about clouds. That's another team. The actual creation of the clouds is being done by the art team and by the code side is Carsten. As I think Ali might have mentioned actually in his Side Star Citizen. But the VFX team work on like the interior effects for gas clouds and clouds. So as part of that, we think of it like templates. So there's different types of clouds have a different set of effects, like a different template for the VFX inside it. And one of those categories of effects is kind of mist or matter, which depending on which kind of cloud you're in, going across the hull of the ship and creating trails for that reason. So yes.
Claro, estaba diciendo si va a haber planes para que las naves dejen rastros en lo que es las nubes y demás. Y dice que sí, que se está estudiando qué tipo de materiales pueden envolver lo que es la nave al traspasar una nube y demás, aunque de las nubes y tal se encarga otra gente, pero que la idea es que sí, que dependiendo de por dónde pase la nave, lo que haga la travesía, dentro de los diferentes efectos y diferentes defectos que tiene cada nave, según la nave pues tendrá diferentes efectos, diferentes historias, ¿no? Pues está también planteado el hecho de que dejen un rastro.
Obviously, as with anything in the game, we have to kind of have LODs with our particle effects. And I think what was happening was, I think like the actual thruster items themselves were getting lodded out, and the particles were getting lodded out. But from a point of view of readability for the player, that was problematic. So I did a test on the Gladius using min pixel distance, so I can min pixel size, so I can force a particle to be like a minimum amount of pixels on the screen, and that can force it to draw further away than it otherwise would do. It would otherwise be cold. So it's still in testing phase, I guess. So it's not been propagated across all ships. It might need to be changed depending on how design feel about it longer term. So that's one of those examples where some of the ships have got this test applied to them, but not all the ships, because that wouldn't be practical to do. So hopefully that answers the question.
It's one of those things where, because we are operating a live environment in the middle of our development, we have the opportunity to do that kind of A/B testing and see how it works in a practical environment and see what the majority of folks say. There's actually another question that says, do you plan on making maneuvering thruster VFX more visible to better sell the ship movements?
Yeah. I mean, I can give a bit more about that question, because I think that one, I guess that there's always, I've seen a few questions on this. I know it's a talking point and has been discussed before, but some of the maneuvering thrusters are kind of quite like physically small, so the actual effects themselves probably don't convey the amount of power that maneuvering thruster is putting out to keep the ship afloat, like when they're on places with gravity. One of the problems we've got is that we kind of take our cues from the physical thruster itself. So if the item itself is quite small, it's difficult for us to, if we kind of oversize the actual effect, that's going to look weird. That's probably not the intention of the people who created the look of the ship in the first place. So we have to find that balance, and there's a bit of back and forth. It's the kind of thing that we do have some we do have the ability to kind of discuss that with the people making the ship. So if we look at the ship and go, you know what, this would probably be better if we could make them maneuvering thrusters just that little bit bigger, that would give us.
Que están hablando un poco del tema de lo que es los efectos de los impulsores de maniobra, que se ven poco comparado a lo que es la entrega que hacen o la capacidad que tiene de sustentación de las naves, que no, como que no se ve reflejado mediante efectos especiales. Pero dice que claro, que en el caso de los impulsores de maniobra, que es un tema de buscar un equilibrio constante, pues al ser una pieza pequeña, no pueden... o sea, no pueden bueno, no pueden hacer un efecto demasiado gordo, porque desencuadraría con lo que es la nave, con lo que es la intención que tenían los artistas a la hora de crear la nave. Así que pues, habrá que buscar con el tiempo soluciones, ¿no? Para tratar de mejorar eso y buscar un buen equilibrio.
Let's talk about fire. A lot of questions about fire. For a while there, we were updating pretty regularly through the sprint report with fire and stuff. And then fire just seems to have gone cold. Haven't seen fire in a while. Warm our hands and our hearts. Mikey Snowden, give us an update on fire.
Did you just call me Mikey Snowden?
Is that what I just did?
I think so. I'm not sure.
I'm clearly in a mood right now. I'm clearly in a mood today.
So yeah, I think one that I've got some notes written down for fire, because obviously there was a lot of questions about fire, and understandably so. It's quite a big feature, and it's quite exciting, and there will be big gameplay implications. So we haven't stopped working on it at all. We've continued to work on it since the last time we spoke about it. We've been actively working on fire the whole time. But when I say we, it's been mostly code. So it's been Leo, our principal VFX programmer, who I always ask to do these things, by the way, but he was away today. He was on PTO. So even before I got a chance to ask him, he was like, before you ask, I'm on PTO. But he very kindly wrote some notes down for me. But yeah, a lot of the work that Leo is doing now, and has been doing in that time frame where you've not really seen much on Inside Star Citizen, is just because it's the less glamorous side of it. So it's kind of more in the back end. Getting the fire, so he's written here, we're still working on getting fire integrated with different systems. We're quite far along with that work, and that what he means by that is kind of making sure it works correct with the room system, making sure it's going to work correctly with.
Claro, está hablando del fuego, ¿no? Del estado del fuego. Dice que hace un tiempo que no se habla del tema del fuego, y pues nos está comentando que realmente el trabajo que está haciendo es de código, de respaldo, de que funcione, porque todavía no están cerca de que el fuego interactúe realmente con otros sistemas, con el sistema de habitaciones pues eso, de poder ventilar una nave, que relacione bien con que se comporte bien con los materiales y los sistemas, los diferentes sistemas de a bordo. O sea, los diferentes sistemas de a bordo, no, los otros sistemas del resto de los sistemas del juego, o sea, que están todavía en la parte de que están picando código.
Or many. In fact, yes, it definitely will lead to
Well,
that.
we're going to commit the weapon content feature team to this right now. A creative video guy and the VFX director. We're committing the weapon content feature team to making a personal flamethrower. I wait to hear from Johnny Jasivius.
Estoy colando que está queriendo, o sea, le dice al equipo de desarrollo de armas que quiere un lanzallamas personalizado. O sea, un lanzallamas personal.
We just put out a river thing. Gosh, was it yesterday? I don't know. I'm working in different weeks worth of shows. So, but yeah. So then all those really cool dynamic landing effects that we've added in recent patches are those going to be continued, but for water?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It goes back to what we were talking about with bombs actually displacing the water. It's all part of. We kind of see it all as the same thing. We basically need to be able to have water bodies, water volumes that can be interacted with, it can be displaced, and yeah, the ship wakes, or the vehicle wakes, was probably one of the easier parts of that. But yeah, that's absolutely the plan. Yeah.
And as a follow-up, will dust like blown up from ships fall down on our helmets and block or reduce our visibility at some point? If there's anything the Star Citizen backers enjoy, it's reduced visibility. Like anything that can remotely reduce their visibility is a big win.
Yeah, we are. I was gonna say we are planning to do that. Have we already got some of that in? We definitely plan on doing that. That all kind of ties into the work that we did, I guess, in 2019 now with getting the frost and slush and rain onto the visor. It's all the same type of work where it's kind of it's tied in with like how we get other layers, like visual layers onto that visor, and how do we get them to play together. So it's definitely planned, but there are quite a lot of complexities with it. One thing, I don't know if this is relevant, but one thing when we brought out the tank, I think, did we show this or talk about this? We liked the idea of a physicalized shockwave being able to displace dust from the surface of characters and vehicles.
Mm-hmm.
But conversely, we like the idea of being able to put dust onto players from like nearby impacts and things like that. So all of that is definitely planned and very doable. We just need to coordinate with the other teams again. It's the similar kind of thing where we need to just work out where the roles are there, like who, like we don't want to put the character artists under pressure to kind of UV map all the like extra UV maps and stuff on the visors. But yeah, it's I love that kind of thing. They're the kind of effects that I really enjoy, like that very interactive, immersive type of effect, dynamic.
What's your mug say?
My mug says, "Hey up."
Vale, están comentando el tema nos han comentado el tema de los ríos, de que sí, de que trabajarán para empezar en lo que es el desplazamiento, las ondas de lo que hacen los vehículos en el agua, que se vean y tal, y luego pues lo de las bombas que irán progresando, que se irá trabajando a lo largo de este año todo, mejorando lo que es los efectos que produce el agua. También están hablando de que quieren incluir en el juego como una especie de efecto de impacto, en el sentido de que si nosotros, por ejemplo, pues tenemos una nave que alcanza pues determinada velocidad, pues que se le quite el polvo de encima de la superficie, o si por el contrario pues tenemos un efecto que pues yo qué sé, pues puede ser por ejemplo una bomba y tal, pues que llene de polvo los alrededores, o llene de lo que sea a los jugadores, ¿no? Y que de alguna manera pues se tenga que interactuar con ello, tal, pero que dice que tampoco quieren pasarse en el hecho de que se tenga que abusar del exceso de limpiarse el casco o demás, ¿no? Pero que definitivamente que es algo que tienen intención de meter.
And yes, before you ask, there will be treasure behind the waterfall. You can't make a game without it. It's a crime. It's a crime against the Geneva Gaming Convention of
There's nothing more disappointing, is there?
1983.
You see the waterfall, you know you got to go through it and there's nothing there. It's very disappointing.
Now I'm committing the mission feature team to putting treasure behind every waterfall. Real question from Garrett Wagner. Real question. Why do the VFX in Star Citizen look so stinking good? Come on!
Because we've got a great team, and but also we've got great leadership who kind of push us to and allow us to really go above and beyond to create high quality effects, and for that I am very grateful.
The flip side of that, from Killer DJK, these VFX are crap. No, will we get fine-grained options with the new VFXs that come online, so we can try to preserve FPS but still get decent eye candy?
Yeah, this is something that I was actually talking to my leads about the other day, and something I talk to Ali Brown often. Min-max settings, dynamic scalability to the particles, things like that. That's something that usually comes in once you've got the tool set kind of locked down more. So there's no more kind of feature requests for the particle system itself. That's when we then start to look at making that toolkit or that particle system more dynamically scalable, more robust, and you need to kind of look at actually what is it that where do we claw back that FPS, or where are we actually using up that FPS? We start to look at it. We got some.
Está diciendo si vamos a tener más granulado fino en lo que es, bueno, pues supongo que nubes, tal, historias, sin que se nos vayan los FPS al traste. Y dice que sí, que definitivamente pues eso está avanzando, ¿no? Y ya está, y que en algún punto pues se optimizará todo el tema.
Oh no, that's wrong. I'm sorry. Toneful asks, will clothing and armor drip when emerging from water? Now, see, Toneful, drip is not a VFX thing. It's the way in which you carry yourself, and it's the way in which you maintain and curate the very clothing and armor that you're referring to. Drip does not come from external sources like water. Drip comes from within.
Do you need to elaborate on that?
Go ahead.
Will they drip?
Water, like when you get out of the river,
Yeah.
you're gonna drip. Drip.
I mean, definitely the outfits and the characters need to kind of have that wetness. So that again, that'll be something that I'd be talking to Ali Brown about, and we'd be working with the people like character, all the people working on characters as well. Would they drip? I don't know if we've got as far as like actually dripping. Sort of like if I had my arm up, would it drip off me?
Yeah.
Maybe.
Well, maybe.
Uf, se viene. Le están preguntando si cuando salgas del agua con el traje vas a gotear. Y dice que definitivamente se están hablando de conversaciones para que haya la sensación de que el traje está húmedo, de que está mojado, ¿no? Cuando sales del agua, mejor dicho. Pero lo de gotear dice como quizás, ¿no? Has dicho maybe, en plan quizás, o sea que es... Si ya no ha dicho que no, chavales. Pero eso tiene que ser espectacular, ¿eh?
I'm still undefeated. Approaching 100 games. I've been speaking English my whole life. What will repaired material look like? Will there be anything to differentiate it from standard unpainted materials, or will they be the same?
So I'm being a little bit cheeky by answering this one because it's technically not something that my team will be in charge of in terms of how that looks. But I do know that we are not planning. We're basically planning on it to not look pristine. So you could never repair. Say there was like a logo or decal or decal on your wing, and you were repairing that wing. That decal wouldn't come back again. There would be like a kind of I don't know exactly, but it definitely would not look pristine because that wouldn't really make sense, would it?
Bueno, está comentando, la pregunta es si a la hora de reparar una nave la veremos en el estado pristino y tal, y dice que no es su equipo no se encarga precisamente de esto, pero sí sabe algo y que dice que sí, que definitivamente no se verá como si estuvieran nuevos. O sea, se notará que está reparado, ¿no?
A couple weeks ago for graphics engineering, as that's a graphics engineering question as opposed to a VFX question.
He really knows his stuff, by the way, that guy. It's good.
Yeah, yeah. But check that out. Basically, the answer is at some point, but he gets into more details there. Are particle effects budgets shuffled around a lot, or are there large amounts of room for growth as VFX are developed? I remember when we were shown engine exhaust being transitioned from particle effects to shader effects.
Yeah. I mean, the budgets change depending on. The budgets do change. I mean, the weird thing is, on working on this game is, like, people get better quality graphics cards. So it kind of, it's very much tied to like the hardware that you're working with or that you've got. But budgets do shift around. We kind of, I guess I'll try and give like a more specific example. So an example of the budget changing would be like if we were using CPU particles, like the older particle system that we had, we would not be able to use as many individual particles, so we'd have a lower count limitation to us using the GPU particles. So absolutely, once upon a time we only had CPU particles, the budget was a lot lower. And once we moved towards GPU, the budget was higher, because it wasn't that we were taking a portion of the budget, but we just had the count limit was much less limited for us. So yeah, the budget does shift around. I mean, it's weird when you're making a game as big as ours as well. It's really hard. It's not like a finite. You can't just get given like a budget from Ali Brown. Like, you can't just go, yeah, you can only use this portion of the budget on this very specific thing, because you've got no limitation on how many ships could be in the vicinity as well. So you might kind of, you work towards a budget for an individual effect, say the Gladius maneuvering thruster, but if there's like 10-20 Gladius, then that budget has shifted dramatically. And actually, this ties in with the question about having dynamic scalability to the particle system. That's the kind of thing that where we need it to be dynamic. We can't really make those decisions when we're authoring the effects. There's got to be some kind of dynamic element to the engine itself, how it's deciding what to draw and what not to draw, without kind of killing what it looks like to the player. So yeah.
For those who maybe haven't been watching the programs for as long as we've been making them now, the better part of almost a decade now. When we talk about cost and budget and stuff like this, that this is a resource allocation thing in the computer. It's everything you ask your computer to do, slows it down just a little tick. So we're always got to balance where we spend those resources. It's not like a money thing or whatever. I just saw some stuff come up. Why are your shelves almost empty? Because I'm in the process of moving. Hoping to move exactly a month from today. We'll see. And then Jared is clearly a less is more person. No, Jared is a more is more person. Jared is definitely a more is more person.
Bueno, aquí lo que estaba diciendo básicamente es el tema de las partículas y tal, si se le va a poder vender más mandanga o van a tener que reducir la cantidad para mejorar o cómo va a ser el tema. Y dice que de momento pues que optimización. Optimización al final es eso, lo típico de ir optimizando y que avance lo que es la tecnología a nivel interno. Ese es el resumen de lo que ha dicho. Aparte también el hecho de que nosotros vamos a tener cada vez mejor hardware.
Asking if you're working on performance improvement. Sorry, it got a little weird there when I copied over.
I guess it's kind of a follow-on from the other question, but yeah. I mean, what was the question again? Sorry, I just loaded my editor up.
Basically, I guess they're asking: do you work on optimizations as you go, or is this something that you wait for at the end, kind of thing? So some things you have to kind of wait for at the end. Some things you can work on, you can optimize as you go. Some things, if you try to optimize as you go, you're just repeating work over and over again, and it's not very effective. Yeah. What's your case?
Yeah, that's actually a really good question. So we kind of optimize as we go. We have to do that to an extent, and I'll give you a reason why. Say I was working on the tractor beam, and I was using a count of like 1 million particles for like a relatively short effect. It might look great. People might look at it and go, yeah, that looks fantastic. show Chris, show the designers, etc., and they're like, yeah, that's definitely what we're looking for. We're really happy with that. Yeah, thank you, that's great. And then I actually optimize it to the point where I couldn't really use 1,000,000 particles. I could only use 1,000, and it doesn't look like it did anymore for that reason. Then that's a bad thing. There's no point kind of you have to factor in rough budgets while you're making the thing all the way through the kind of lifetime of work.
Ahora está comentando de si optimizan sobre la marcha o directamente pues hacen las cosas y luego las optimizan al final del trabajo. Dice que claro, que ellos... Está hablando, por ejemplo, del rayo tractor y ellos se presentan con una opción de tener un rayo tractor y demás y se lo presentan a Chris o a quien sea y dicen, oh, qué de puta madre, qué bien te ha quedado, pero claro, si luego le mates el pase optimizado y tiene que tener 1.000 partículas menos o... Entonces, pues al final... ya no tienes el mismo efecto que tenías y ya pinta distinto. Por eso cuando entregan el tema tienen que tratar de ajustar el costo, ¿no? de lo que es lo que están creando ya desde un principio para ver cómo podría ser el resultado final medianamente optimizado, más o menos, ¿no?
Towards the end.
Yeah. This question in the chat, I'm going to rephrase it a little bit. It's common in some other games, competitive games, to reduce the graphics and everything to lower standards, so because it happens to reduce some of the VFX budgets. Usually, you end up removing smoke, you end up removing dust and other things that are designed to obscure your vision. In some games, not all games, but in some games, it gives players a competitive advantage to bring all those things down and get rid of them. What are your thoughts on that? Are you considering alternatives for that or preventative stuff from that? Well, we talked earlier about being able to reduce the quality of VFX, through sliders and stuff like this. Would you consider a mode that just eradicates them like there are in some games?
I don't think our directive is to be able. I think we don't want to give players competitive advantages by reducing graphics options. I don't think that's kind of the ethos of Star Citizen, because that's just I mean, from my point of view as a VFX artist, I hate the idea that like the competitive gamers just won't ever have the effects on the screen. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So we need to find the balance. I mean, we obviously don't want to be crushing people's performance, but I wouldn't like the idea that we're kind of forcing people to hide the effects. I just think that's not really in the spirit of the game we're making.
Dice el tema de la escena competitiva, de que hay gente pues que quita todos los efectos y pone los juegos mínimo, ¿no? Para poder tener ventaja competitiva en el caso de no haber ningún tipo de niebla o cosas que puedan ocultar la visión del jugador. Y dice que eso en Star Citizen que no es la idea que tenemos. La idea que tenemos es que haya efectos especiales y que no haya esa diferencia, esa ventaja competitiva por reducir todo al mínimo, ¿no? Que tendrán en cuenta lo que es... serán prudentes en el sentido de no abusar demasiado de la exigencia de hardware por parte del usuario, pero que habrá mandanga.
As bad. Regarding fire plus salvage effects, a bit more gameplay related, but have you heard or had any work on potential hazards whilst salvaging? Always like a person use the word whilst. I.e. accidentally lasering a fuel line or causing a fire or explosion, anything like that.
So this is ultimately like a design decision. So I'm just going to speculate, and this is really again just me sort of thinking about this from a point of view of if that was a requirement, how would we deal with it from the VFX point of view? I know it's been discussed. I've heard people talking about this in various conversations we've had not too long ago. It's how do you mark it up, I think is the thing there. It's how complex does it need to be? Like I know that there's certain ships with the damage shader where they've got kind of once you've stripped away the damage, once you've stripped away the top layer of the hull, some of the ships, and you can do that just when you shoot the ships with the damage shader as it is, but that's kind of similar to what salvaging might be. There are lots of pipes just in the art itself, so in the shader. That'd be quite tricky to mark up, I think, from a point of view of having that pipe have gameplay implications. So I don't personally think that it would make sense to go that detailed with it. But yeah, I think that like the risk versus reward element of salvage gameplay, there's probably going to be things like that. Again,
Te están preguntando si han trabajado en efectos especiales relacionados con peligros posibles del salvage, como por ejemplo reventar una tubería usar un paquito de combustible o cualquier historia, ¿no? Entonces, perdón, joder, la madre que me parió. Entonces está comentando de que una vez el casco esté pues totalmente despiezado, ¿no? O sea, que se vea tal, pues sí que habrá un shader que se vean por ahí tuberías y tal, o tubos. Pero que sería complicado marcar un tubo en concreto, ¿no? Pero que no, que en principio sí posiblemente dice que ha escuchado conversaciones de esto, ¿no? Y no hace mucho y que posiblemente pues haya algún peligro relacionado y tal, pero que no quizás no a tanto nivel de detalle, que le parece complicado llegar a tanto nivel de detalle.
refraction is really expensive. That's what I should say. Like that's a really expensive overdraw, transparency, sorting. They're kind of real kind of big thorny issues when you're working on VFX, just in game engines in general, to be fair. So that could quickly become very expensive. But yeah, we have a better, potentially cheaper GPU refraction now. So let's be honest, we're going to need to have that kind of hazy heat effect for fire anyway. So yeah, I think that it's feasible that once we've solved it for that, we can start to look at it propagating in a more general circumstances.
There's always an interesting phenomenon in Star Citizen fandom that ostensibly we're an outer space game, but as when we added planets, everything became about planets, and then when it went underground, it became about cave. The questions is like the focuses for people. Now that we're talking about rivers, there's a lot of questions about water and specifically underwater. With rivers and underwater content coming, what is the high-level plan for underwater particle effects? Will we see haze, refractions like that? Suspended dirt particles, mud, clouds, or suspended styrations? That's I like saying suspended styrations.
Yeah, but what does it mean, Jared?
I don't know. I'm not an underwater person.
I'm gonna write down on my post-it suspended styrations.
I just like saying it though.
It's a great phrase.
It's a good alliteration.
Yeah. Kind of sounds like I don't know, some kind of ambient audio playlist. Yeah. So obviously rivers are very exciting for the backers and for the people here at CIG. There's untold, there's loads of potential once we get them kind of propagating across all these locations. When we get to do the effects side of it, because obviously as you know, the first iteration does.
Está hablando el tema de si vamos a poder tener como esa forma ondulada, ¿no? de calor que se genera con las naves. Si lo vamos a ver en las naves, tipo la mítica peli de Top Gun, cuando ves el avión y llega, ¿no? Y se ve ahí todo ondulado y tal. O si y dice que bueno, que ese tipo de tecnología que definitivamente pues es algo de tipo como transparencias o tipos de ese estilo de reflexiones, ¿no? Refracciones que son caras en lo que es un motor de juego y tal, aunque tienen nuevas técnicas desarrolladas para hacer este tipo de soluciones, o sea, este tipo de efectos más baratos a través de la tarjeta gráfica. Pero comenta que definitivamente tendrán que hacer este tipo de efectos para lo que son las llamas, para lo que son el fuego, y que una vez tengan eso dominado, pues lo irán propagando a otros sistemas si es conveniente. Aparte, ahora está comentando de que dice, bueno, con las preguntas de Ríos y tal y demás, vais a poner, ¿qué nos puedes contar sobre efectos que vas a poner debajo del agua y demás?
Things here. But yeah, I guess all of that. Yeah, players interacting with all the kind of small little bits of particulate matter. We can do all that with our screen space collision. So why would...
Claro, al final todo dice que en definitiva todo lo que te puedes esperar debajo del agua, ¿no? pues eso, el jugador interactuando con el medio de alguna manera. Eh,
And we've said this a lot. Take it to the point of realism, bring it back to the point of fun. But there's also another underlying consideration that there are games that specialize in one particular aspect. Like people were bringing up Hard Space Shipbreaker, a game that's whose sole focus is salvage, or a game like Subnautica whose sole focus is underwater. And it's like this. We are a sandbox game, So our focus is a bit broader than that stuff. So it's we always want to take these things as far as we can. Like that will always be our intention. That will always be our desire. The question is only ever how far is that before it begins to affect other aspects of our sandbox that are just as important, either in time, resources, like in the physical world, or resources in the virtual world. Like this, it's always just it's a question of how it fits in with everything else. It will always determine how far we take a thing. Our desire will always be to the absolute end.
Claro, dice que en Star Citizen pues que hay que recordar que esto es un sandbox, que no es un juego dedicado de una sola especialidad, como puede ser Subnautica, que es para dedicado a la vida submarina y demás. Lo que se refiere es que dice que tratarán de empujar a lo máximo posible lo que es la fidelidad, pero siempre recordando que tiene que traer primero lo más realista de lo realista, lo jugable, ¿no? Pero la complejidad y todo esto pues van a intentar llevarlo lo más allá posible, pero es hasta el punto de que no afecte a otros sistemas de lo que es el juego. Recordando de que Star Citizen no es un juego que solo se dedique a una parte en concreto, ¿no? Sino que pues es un universo entero.
To be taken equally.
Pero que a pesar de eso pues intentarán empujar a los límites de lo que puedan, ¿no?
I've been clear, like the first iteration of that is like interiors, specifically vehicle interiors. If we just tried to just do fire, full on propagation, 4-star citizen, you're looking at like burning forests and
yeah. If our game was burn the universe, then yes, then obviously at some point you could expect everything in the universe to be able to catch fire, but because it is one aspect of our entire sandbox, it will be limited. But it will be limited after we push it as far as we can. So.
Yep.
I already asked that question. Why is this still on my screen? Will we be seeing lightning effects and other things in the gas cloud interiors? And if so, what will they do to ships and people in and out of ships? Well, that last part's again a design question. So we'll just go with the visual. Will we be seeing lightning effects and other things in gas cloud interiors?
Yeah, absolutely, we will. We obviously showed which Star Citizen was it? Which Citizen.com was it? We showed like a video that we did where we got lightning effects going on. Yeah, that's absolutely what we are doing.
Vamos a ver rayos en otros sitios que no sean nubes de gases y demás. Y dice, bueno, sí, hemos visto rayos en The Coil, o sea que dice que sí, absolutamente veremos rayos en otros sitios.
Back in our Squadron 42 vertical slice a couple years ago, and if you can track that down on the YouTube if you haven't seen it, you can see the process of navigating an enormous gas cloud that has lightning and stuff that actual damages and effects to the ship as it goes through. So.
Yeah.
Claro, dice que al final que sí también, pues eso, que dice que podemos ver los rayos en lo que es el decoil, que es una zona de gas enorme y tal, y además vemos cómo también puede tener efectos de daño sobre las naves y demás.
To kind of get this properly working in game is more, again, less glamorous. It's more in the back end. It's more kind of just making.
Que yo no recuerdo que se viera como había distorsión y tal, creo que habían enseñado distorsión, y eso no lo habían enseñado en la demo de corte vertical. Discolando ha visto cosas que nosotros no, claro. Acaba de hacer un mini leak ahí sin darse cuenta, yo creo, porque no hemos visto hasta la fecha que una nave sea dañada por un rayo, y lo dice como con confianza de que ha sido así, ¿no? O sea que algo debe haber visto.
It will work. We can design. Have got kind of full control over what the lightning actually does. We've got it, or we had it killing people if it hits them, which you probably expect. But we got there's a conductivity setting in the surface type setting, so you can make a surface more conductive, less conductive, and then there's lots of interesting.
Dice que hay un factor de conducción de las superficies que puedes hacer en superficies que condujan mejor o peor electricidad y porque están hablando del tema de lo de que la gente se puede electrocutar y demás.
We got the SDFs, the gas. We
Esperamos que eso al final es parte de otro equipo que se tendría que traer la palestra, ¿no?
that we can use that to spawn the lightning. Where it becomes a design conversation is, do design want the lightning to spawn more regularly to prevent players going to certain areas of the gas cloud, i.e. the thicker the gas cloud becomes, do you want the lightning spawning more regularly, or do you want, rather than it spawning more regularly, would a designer maybe want just one much more powerful lightning bolt to strike the player? So all of these kind of things we can do, we take our...
Claro, dice que la cuestión sería luego, pues a la hora de hacerlo, qué tipo de movida quieres hacer, ¿no? Conversaciones como, por ejemplo, de quieres que cada vez que cuando una nube sea más densa, pues que tenga más concentración de rayos repetidamente para prevenir que los jugadores pasen por allí. Quieres que sea más ocasional, pero que sea algo más potente y que golpee a un jugador.
There's the question, am I rambling?
No,
No, okay.
not any worse than I
No
do.
more than usual, at least.
VFX are traditionally downstream of a lot of things. Would you consider VFX a downstream team in a lot of aspects?
I don't like that term, by the way. I'm not a fan, even though I use it myself. I prefer support team.
Support team?
But yeah, downstream makes sense in as much as we typically can't do our work until
Other people have done.
the process is cascaded down. So
Yeah.
that's where downstream comes from. But for me, downstream kind of conjures images of, like, I don't know, like the muddy bog at the end of the pretty stream, like with a discarded shopping trolley. So
Where
I don't like to
the
think of myself as
where the
wading
suspended
through that mud.
striations are.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But yes, we are. Yeah, we are.
Okay.
Along with audio, the lovely audio.
Yeah. I bring that up because one of the questions is what are you currently working on for Pyro? And I was wondering if anything at this point yet, or if Pyro has made it to you yet or not.
I mean, it's made it to me via Ian, with lots of requests. Hey Mike. Yeah, we have actually done some work, or quite a lot of work for Pyro. I've been in tons and tons of meetings where we've signed up to do more work. So obviously there's Pyro. There's a lot that comes with Pyro. There's the actual gas clouds themselves. So hey, guess what? Lightning is going to be needed in Pyro gas.
Dice si ha llegado a su mesa el tema de Pyro, ¿no? Si ha tenido que estar currando en Pyro. Dice que sí, que ha hecho toneladas de Pyro, ha tenido varias reuniones y de hecho, pues hablando de los rayos, pues los rayos es algo que se está... los relámpagos es algo que se está utilizando en Pyro ahora mismo.
Ups and locations and things like that. So yeah, some of the work's done. Lots of it is ready to be done and kind of part of the schedule. But we won't be, or because we are support team or downstream, we won't be as polished at the moment as some of the other teams are. I've seen lots of cool Pyro stuff.
Any work on the most backers will know, but maybe if you don't, the Dying Star from Arena Commander it was based on the Pyro system. Have you done anything for the Dying Star in Pyro yet? The actual Dying Star as opposed to the Arena Commander Dying Star? No.
Short answer.
Okay. Fishing. I really hope fires will not burn indefinitely for the sake of gameplay. Well, I can tell you they're not going to burn indefinitely for the sake of performance. A fire will only continue to burn while there is solid material or gases to fuel it, and where a fire is burning changes constantly. Will Star Citizen's fires behave dynamically like real-world fires?
I am prepped for this question. Thanks to Leo again. So Leo's lovely answer here is that for the full systemic fire in the PU, it is modelled on real-world fire behaviour, so it does need fuel, oxygen and heat. It will react accordingly if fuel or oxygen is missing. So to give an example, if there is no fuel left, obviously the fire will stop burning. If there's no oxygen in a room. So like if the safety systems kind of shut a room down, then the fire will stop burning, and it won't just switch off. We'll have it kind of visually looking correct for that, and the player will be able to.
Están hablando del fuego, de si se comportará dinámicamente o tal y tal. Bueno, el fuego pues tendrá oxígeno, combustible, o sea, oxígeno, sí, bueno, oxígeno, combustible, necesita varias cosas. El oxígeno es una parte de los combustibles que necesita el fuego, me parece a mí, si no recuerdo mal. Pero bueno, ¿qué es eso? Que si le falta alguno de esos factores, pues que se comportará de manera acorde.
That's a good way that we could kind of allow design to build in some kind of barriers or some blockers or reasons not to go somewhere by just keeping that fuel burning constantly. So yes and no, I guess.
We're almost done. We've only got 5 minutes left. How does the effect culling in Star Citizen work? Can objects block or redirect smoke and other effects like building walls can?
Yeah, so this is interesting because the particles on their own don't really know, like there's no real concept of that. Just by, if I just place a big smoke effect in a room, nothing's going to stop that particle as it is from just kind of going outside the room, and certainly it's not going to react to the ceiling and crawl along it. Having said that, if we're clever about it, and again for fire, we are going to be wanting to do this. Try not to commit overly to some of these sets, but yeah, but for fire, like we want smoke crawling along ceilings eventually. That's something that we aspire to be able to do. That's just how you mark it up. So maybe again, we use side distance fields a lot. Maybe we have a similar kind of setup there. I know we've actually played around with that in some of our fire work so far. Viz areas, actual screen space collision on certain effects. It kind of depends on what the effect is, I guess. But yeah, it's just depend. Again, it kind of depends what the game needs and what design are asking for, what art are asking for. We can absolutely make it do that, but it might be more complicated to get it to kind of look visually right.
As a sort of follow up to that, take that back up into space. Has anyone considered applying the sign distance fields for effects related to entering and exiting gas clouds? It would be impressive to see a large ship emerge from the cloud bank and have the mist streaming off of its hull.
Yeah, Chris wants that, so it's going to happen.
Everybody wants that.
Yeah, but it's a great example of it is a good example of like how we can use an SDF. It's a little bit tricky because the gas clouds themselves, or the volumetric, the planetary clouds themselves, they're not going to react. So it's not like we're going to kind of morph the actual the volumetric form itself. But if we do it with particles, which we'll try and do, we need to just make it kind of look like it's connected to the cloud. So it's quite a tricky one to do. We've already actually done some experiments with it. Trying not to give away spoilers, but it's something that we've definitely kind of worked on visually. And as I say, Chris wants that. I understand why, because it's a great idea. So yeah, that's another one that I'm sort of saying, yep, we're definitely planning to do it.
What's a backlog? Last question. What's a backlog?
It's a big thing.
Yeah. No, last question. Take us on a tour of what's behind you, starting with the Turtles tournament fighters.
Well, I put this here for you, Jared. It's no secret, but yeah.
I was not good at tournament fighters, but I appreciated that it existed.
16 meg cart. It's amazing. Yeah, that's a PAL version, Super Nintendo.
You just have to point at things. We're not going to have time to pick everything out. So just point at everything and tell us what it is.
Mega SG, Super NT. So they're basically hardware. Mega Drive and Super Nintendo, or Genesis Super Nintendo emulators. That's a Sega Saturn. That's an Xbox, OG Xbox, the Crystal one. That's my Dreamcast games. Sega Saturn games. More Sega Saturn games. Super Famicom, Super Nintendo, some PlayStation, including Wing Commander 4. More Saturn games. Loads of junk under there, unsorted. Wing Commander 4, Big Box PC, Privateer 2, The Darkening. Super Star Wars, Super Famicom. Cybernator, which is a brilliant sort of mech side-scrolling shooting game. Sega Saturn steering wheel, arcade racer, some arcade sticks. Yeah.
Okay. Did you put that cover on the Xbox? The
No,
translucent cover?
no. This is the crystal pack. Yeah, the it was kind of a. I think it's the 1.6 model. It's a later edition with the small.
Remember that time when everything was coming in translucent cases? So nice. It's such a nice 90s aesthetic. Although that was obviously the 2000s, but that was like one of the last vestiges of the translucent case. And you got the matching translucent controller to go with it.
Yeah.
Is that a Duke or is that the smaller one?
Bueno, voy a dejar
There's
que...
loads more as well that you can't see that's off camera. There's a Wii U down there. There's my Dreamcast. There's a PlayStation 1. And Nintendo 64, Jared. Nintendo 64 there.
Nintendo 64. When I got my first credit card and immediately went over limit and destroyed my credit for like 10 years after that. That's my lasting memory of the N64. All right. Thank you, Mike. Thank you for being on the show. Thanks for talking VFX. To the folks who had to listen to the show, sorry for my constant tapping on the thing. It didn't occur to me until like 2 minutes before the end of the show that this is probably really annoying with the table mic. So really apologize for that happening throughout the show. Join us again on ISC next week. We are talking looting and selling in Alpha 3.17 with the changes to loot that are coming and the addition of being able to sell all that loot now that you're collecting, and an update on medical gameplay. A look back at how it went, some tweaks and changes that are also coming in Alpha 3.17, and then a discussion of where we want to take the system after that. That's coming in Inside Star Citizen next week. And then SCL, I actually don't know because we just had to reschedule our guest. They just told me they couldn't make it, so I don't know who's going to be on SCL, but I'm sure it'll be great. Speaking of rescheduling, the EUPU gameplay feature team will be coming back on March 25th. So not next Friday, but the Friday after that. So that show that we had to reschedule from a couple weeks ago is happening on the 25th. We're using all the same questions that were already pulled and everything. So look out for that on the 25th. Yeah. So that's what I got right now. That's Mike. That's me. This is my ever dwindling office. This is a copy of Rogue One on VHS.
Yes.
The best way to watch the Star Wars movies if you're our generation. And we'll see you next week, everybody. Take care.
Vale.
I don't know what I ate or drank this morning, but I'm probably going to get an email.
Why? What's wrong?
Vale, pues ahí al final ha acabado diciendo, discolando. Bueno, antes de llegar ahí, el tema de que están trabajando en el humo para que, bueno, de alguna manera pues se comporte. O sea, el humo se va a comportar y va a tratar de escapar de las estructuras y tal. Lo que pasa es que, bueno, ya trabajar en lo que es la acumulación de humo y más cosas que eso, definitivamente va a ser complicado, ¿no? Y luego, pues también el tema de que una nave, cuando salga de una acumulación de gas, nube, ¿no? De las nubes, no vamos a decir las nubes, no vamos a decir de gas, vamos a llamar nubes, pues que efectivamente pues que se está trabajando, se están haciendo pruebas ya para que se produzca un efecto como de salida de la nave, ¿no? Que se vea ese efecto de nubes, pues haciendo el mítico ¿vale? Y que está trabajando una técnica con el Signal Field, que es la misma técnica que utilizan para los escudos, de tal manera que se produzca un efecto que dé la sensación de que visualmente forma parte de la nube, aunque realmente no forme parte de la nube, ¿vale? Luego también está diciendo de que, bueno, aparte de que nos enseñó toda la colección del fulano de consolas y tal, que ahí por eso no dije nada, para que acabara el tipo de enseñar su movida. Está discolando de que para el Insight de la semana que viene nos hablarán de el loteo de objetos, o sea, el botín, y de vender ese botín que viene para la 3.17. O sea, ya está, vamos, si lo enseñan así ya, pues que ya que está más que confirmado de que lo vamos a tener. Y luego también ha dicho de que el equipo del UPU, pues que vendrá, bueno, el Inside este que se tuvo que retrasar y tal por el tema de los acontecimientos que hay ahí en Europa del Este, pues comentaba de que, bueno, pues el 25 de marzo estarán de vuelta y ya está, y que no se sabe más. O sea, del Star Citizen Light este viernes que no sabe cuál va a ser o qué va a ser. Ha tenido que hacer calendario. Voy a hacer esto rápido